does a warming planet do for us here in Michigan? How is it going to impact us?
Well, the best projections we have now of the future, I think one take home is that they are strongly dependent upon factors like new greenhouse gas emissions in the future, economic growth, the population, all these things are tied together. And it's a difficult thing to, of course, to project even our forecasts, and we think about climate in the coming decades. Well, it's arguably even more challenging to look at the economic factors. And some people in the world trying to get energy, improve their standard of living. There's a number of very complex factors that are involved here. But the factor remains that the greater the emissions in the future, the greater the overall warming that we will see. One other complicating factor here is the fact that once the carbon and nitrogen, nitrous oxide, some of these substances are released back into the atmosphere after being fixed, they remain there for a long time, sometimes on the order of centuries. So we are already, because of the carbon that's been released since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, 150 or so years ago, with a lot of activity, it's stuck in the atmosphere, and of course is responsible for a significant fraction of the warming we've seen. It also will impact us in the future, regardless of what we do now. There is some warming, but the bottom line, the take home is that the greater the emissions now in the future, the greater the warming will be, and the more rapid the warming that will take place. So relative to the global response, and that's thought to be somewhere on the order of 2, 3, maybe 4 degrees Celsius. So it's roughly double that for degrees Fahrenheit. Where we are here in the upper Midwest, Great Lakes region, we would expect to see relatively higher rates of warming here in the mid-latitudes. And some regions are different. Some of the tropical, oceanic areas of the world, the warming is less. But here in the middle of the continent, we would likely see greater warming than what the global average does, and that's also a very strong likelihood. There's a lot of confidence about that. And precipitation, the amount of water with this, that there are some differing scenarios. Most of the projections for the near-term future suggest a continuation of where we are now and where we've been over the last couple decades, so that's warmer and wetter. But not all, but many of the projections for the distant future, for the latter half of this century, for example, they suggest perhaps that we would see maybe the same, maybe even a little bit more annual precipitation, but we have to look at the timing and the seasonality of it. And some of what is concerning is that the precip expected to fall in the warm season, when we really need the water more, and water needs are greater, that might be less or more erratic than it was in the past. And so that's something that there's a lot of research right now, including here at MSU, to explore, and for both natural and human systems like agriculture. That's a big deal.